Hi, I was driving home yesterday and putting on some video to listen to some podcasts, and I happened to be I happened to stumble across David L. Gray. He's a YouTube Catholic commentator, and he was just going over mass nightmares. So where the liturgy is done very badly. So I was listening to this video and he makes a point, well, look, the only way we can change this is highlighting, when we see the liturgy done badly, how it's the only way we can make changes, by showing Catholics, the problems we have in the church. I mean, I just thought it was very, I'm here in Ireland, I'm an Irish Catholic, and I thought it was very interesting this that David, who's American, was referencing, what's going on in the United States. I remember being on working in Atlanta, and as an Irishman, as a tourist on a weekend, I said, look, where'll I go to Mass? And I remember going to Mass in Atlanta in the Basilica of the Sacred Heart, which is down near Five Points. And anyone who hasn't been to Atlanta will know, well, okay, there are different ways of doing things in the States than we do in Europe. In Europe, if you go to any major city, you take public transport, you take the bus or the metro and so forth. So I did the same thing in Atlanta. I said, okay, look, I'm here in Atlanta, so I'll take the MARTA and I'll go to the Basilica of the Sacred Heart in Atlanta, which is in Five Points. You get off in the station of Five Points. Very interesting experience, and anybody that knows Atlanta will understand why I'm saying it's a very interesting experience. Anyway, so I got off at Five Points and I walked to the Basilica of the Sacred Heart. I have to say, going to Mass there, I actually had to ask myself, I actually did look up at the end of the Mass to see, is this actually a Catholic church? Because it was something so weird I've never seen before. This was like 5-6 years ago. The priest came in with the deacon, and there was two women in front of them dressed like as if they were deacons but without the stole, but they were two women holding bowls of incense and bringing it down the church towards the altar. Never seen this before in a Mass. And it was really bizarre Mass. It was really like Novus Ordo. Obviously, when I arrived, there was people there. No, can I validate your parking? And I said, no, I took the MARTA here. It says, oh, okay. I don't think too many people take the MARTA to this particular church. And people were there, and there were people talking around the church. It was a very social thing. People were holding hands during the Our Father. I just don't do that. It was just a bizarre Mass. It didn't look like anything I'd ever seen before. So that was my Mass that day. After Mass, because I wanted to see Atlanta, I went to where Martin Luther had his church, the Ebenezer Church. There's a church, his old church. There's a brand new big church, and then there was a museum. And what struck me in Atlanta was, you go to this church, all of the people were really dressed up well. They had their suits on, a lot of singing. It was a weird experience. Then the following week, I didn't really want to go back to that weirdy church, the Basilica of Sacred Heart. It just felt just strange to me. So I went to the Fraternity of St. Peter, and that was a very different experience. Traditional Latin Mass, packed church, completely different way, completely different Mass, let's suffice to say that the Mass at the Basilica of the Sacred Heart in Atlanta had absolutely nothing in common with the Fraternity of St. Peter. The following Sunday I was there, I went out to the SSPX Mass in Roswell, so I drove out, and they had practically the same setup as the Fraternity of St. Peter. You know, I think they're cut of the same cloth. I went to, as I was staying out in Buckhead, I went down to the Basilica a good bit. They have a beautiful little adoration chapel. And Mass there, the Novus Ordo Mass there in the morning was what we would have in Ireland. And it was good to see there was a lot of men there going to Mass before work, which, I just thought it was a beautiful Mass. So it's amazing. It's amazing when we see this the way we worship in the Catholic Church. We still haven't discovered how we're supposed to worship. We still don't know what it is. We still don't know how to identify the Mass as what it is. The Mass is the highest form of prayer in the Church. It is the Eucharist is the source, summit, and center of our faith. It's come to the stage. It's pointless really criticizing priests the way they celebrate the liturgy. If you don't like it, you just have to be quiet and not go back to that particular parish where the Mass is said that way, because things have gone so bad. What can we do? I think at this stage it's better that Catholics just support traditional Latin Mass, priests, support the liturgies that really foster and help our faith. Whenever I travel, I love going to different places to see how the liturgy is celebrated, and I'll often go to if for example, if I'm in Moscow or in Eastern Europe or in Greece, I'll go to an Orthodox liturgy, a divine liturgy. Obviously, I can't take communion, but you can be at the divine liturgy, and it is completely different to see how the liturgy is celebrated, because at the end of the day, you have the priest praying the Mass, the divine liturgy, and he is focused on the divine. The Eucharist is what we are focused on. The priest isn't turning to us and pandering to us and doing a show, because at the end, what I see today in the church is the Novus Ordo has become a show. It's not a liturgy. Every Novus Ordo Mass, in Ireland anyway, from this is my experience here since the 80s, growing up with the Novus Ordo, every Novus Ordo, the priest has to say, well, look, how do I invent this so that people are more interested in it and I can capture their attention? And so the priest is completely focused on the audience. How can I capture this audience? How do I make my show more captivating for the audience so that it is not dry and boring for them? And we've forgotten that the liturgy is, we're supposed to be focused on the sacred, on the divine, not on the audience, not on the laity, not on us. We are there to pray, to worship the divine, to go to Mass. That's what the Mass is. So I think, Mass nightmares, complaints, if you wanted to go down and down that direction, yeah, you can do that. But it's at the end of the day, you just create friction in the church. You just create, that this guy is there going around and, auditing how Masses are. We know what's going on in the church. We know how badly the liturgy has become. Priests should say the black and do the red, and that's it. That's what the liturgy should be. It doesn't say in the Novus Ordo as it was issued by the Vatican, it doesn't say, okay, now and start inventing your own things. So when you're consecrating, you say, "This is my body, which will be given up for you," and so forth. And at the end of the liturgy, please thank the 20 million Eucharistic ministers that have, and the servers and everything. And let's have a round of applause for everybody who participated in you're all great that you came to this Mass, and you're participating in the Mass, and so forth and so forth and so forth. I've seen everything at Mass in Ireland. I've seen, and at the end of the day, we wonder why the majority of under 30s in Ireland don't go to Mass anymore. We wonder why the majority of Catholics, the majority of baptized Catholics, don't go to Mass on a Sunday anymore in Ireland. And it's the same if we look all over Europe. Because we don't show something serious, profound, divine in our worship anymore. It's not. When people come to Mass, they find a show today in the Novus Ordo. The priest is there to perform to us. He's not there to center him, for him to center on the liturgy. In the past, the consecration, the prayer of the consecration, it was called the Oratio Pericoloso, the dangerous prayer, or it was because it was such a profound, and it was such an important part of the liturgy that the priest was bringing God down into his hands. At the end of the day, the priest has to be centered on the sacred. He has to pray the Mass. He has to center himself. He has to become holy, and he has to lead us towards that encounter with the sacred. But we don't do that anymore. We don't. That's not what the liturgy is anymore. And most Catholics don't understand what the liturgy is anymore. I remember I went twice on a pilgrimage to Mount Athos in Greece, which is kind of a monastic republic in Greece, with border. You need a special permission to go in. So I asked could I visit, and the Orthodox said yeah. So I went there and visited the monasteries, and obviously as a Catholic, you could stay and go to the Divine Liturgy, but not without communion. It is profoundly different how they reverence, how they offer the Divine Liturgy than it is profoundly different than what us Catholics do. You're in some place that is sacred. It is steeped in sacred. You can feel it. You feel yourself steeped in the sacred. You're in awe of the sacred. The priest who's performing the Divine Liturgy does not come out to perform to us. He is praying to God. He is leading us in that prayer. He's leading us towards the divine. And the whole setting leads you towards the divine. It is profoundly mystical. It is profoundly... I will always remember going to a Divine Liturgy there in Mount Athos, in the different monasteries, in Magister Lavera, which is the biggest monastery there. I've been there twice. Stavronikita and St. Anna. These experiences, these encounters mark you as a human being. You return to those memories time and again. And I've been to Eastern Greek Catholic Divine Liturgies in Bratislava, the same thing. Those encounters mark you. You will remember them. In Ireland, I remember when the Institute of Christ the King, they bought a new church in Belfast, and we had the first solemn high mass in the church, with lots of priests, with the bishop there. The beauty of the traditional Latin Mass, the majesty of this. And that encounter marks you. And this liturgy is so beautiful because our God is so beautiful. We want to spend the time to worship you, God. We want to direct our prayer towards you, God. And we all know that Christ is present in the Nos Ordo and in the traditional Latin Mass. He is there. But do we frustrate our encounter with him by putting layers of distractions in front of him? Could we do it more reverently? There was beautiful tradition in the Catholic Church. It did foster saints. It practically fostered all of the saints of all ages. This way of worship, this traditional Latin Mass. Was it that evil? Was it that bad that we had to bin it and to come up with a new order of the Mass that we don't follow? We don't follow. I mean, it's not followed. Everywhere I go to experience a different Novus Ordo, it's done in a different way. Everywhere. He said, oh, okay, so you do it this way here in this parish. Yeah, we do it this way. Oh, okay. I mean, that's fine. I just find it in this day and age, you go to churches and sometimes you hear recordings of Gregorian chant. I've seen it in many churches. You go in there and you see these beautiful recordings, and how many people come and, oh, that's beautiful music that you have there. What's that? Oh, that's Latin. That's beautiful. Why don't they sing that anymore? The amount of people that will buy a CD or go into and get Gregorian and just listen to it and meditate. Oh, that's beautiful. And I said, well, yeah, that was part of Catholic heritage. In the 70s, we changed to semi-pop music, and so forth. So, the liturgy is important, but if we think about it, it was the divine liturgy that converted Russia. Prince Vladimir, who sent his envoys to Constantinople. That experience converted Russia. And even today, you go to these divine liturgies and you say, oh, it's just awe-inspiring. You're just in awe. There's something so profoundly beautiful, something so different to the world. I honestly think we seem to have forgotten our Catholic heritage and history, as if for 2,000 years the Holy Spirit wasn't inspiring the liturgy whatsoever. As if the Holy Spirit wasn't working in the church whatsoever, and that we have to hate our heritage as Roman Catholics. What we've seen now from Pope Francis is the Novus Ordo is the unique expression that bishops aren't to allow new priests say the traditional Latin Mass without express permission from Rome, that parishioners should not be new groups in the parish, and if there's going to be traditional Latin Mass, it shouldn't be said in the parish. We seem ashamed of our heritage as Roman Catholics when we see this. It's incredible. It's quite incredible when you think about it, especially in Ireland and in Europe. When you think about it, if an Orthodox priest and some Orthodox faithful are looking for a place to celebrate Mass, many bishops around Europe will bend over backwards to allow the Orthodox to use a Catholic church for their worship. I know it happens here in Ireland. I could name a dozen cities around Europe where the Orthodox are allowed to have their divine liturgy. I can name one. There's actually one city in Ireland, and I don't really want to focus on it, but there's actually one city in Ireland where the Romanian Orthodox have been given permission by a Catholic bishop to hold their divine liturgy, and it's in the same church where traditional Latin Mass is allowed to be celebrated. Isn't it bizarre? It's bizarre when you think about it. that we will bend over. And if Greek Catholics needed a place to worship, they would be given it. They would. But us traditional Latin Mass Catholics now are not allowed to foster and grow and develop and nourish our traditional Latin Mass. We're not allowed, for example, we wouldn't be allowed today under the new regime, we wouldn't be allowed today to get permission to go into a new diocese and to build a church. It just, according to what Pope Francis has said, no new groups. So you wouldn't be allowed to do any to foster this. But so look, where we're going with this is the best way to be, criticizing and nitpicking at priests in the Novus Order. I honestly don't think it's worth it anymore, because if you think about as many priests who have been trained over the last 20 years don't know Latin, they don't have the training in place, and you have a lot of the time you have incredible clericalism as regards to their attachment. Who are you to be telling me how to say my mass and so forth? Last year, when the restrictions ended in Ireland and when the government allowed priests to say mass, a local parish priest, he needed more time to say mass. He needed more time to open the church. And he got very annoyed that I called him out. Says, well, who are you to be saying that I should be saying mass? That's true. You're not a priest. And I think that the way we are in the church today is, it's best just to, pray for them and to go to other groups that do love and the liturgy. We have to think of the long term here. We have to form our kids to love the traditional Latin Mass. We have to network with other Catholics who love the traditional Latin Mass. We have to foster it. And in 40, 50 years, things might be different. But today in the church, it's if you're looking to reform the Novus Ordo, or looking to make sure that the Novus Ordo is said as it should be, nobody's listening. Bishops don't care. Most priests don't care. And it is what it is. And sure, that's the way it is, and we just have to pray for them and hope that at some stage the people that have the power to make changes in the church see that we need to return to a liturgy that brings us to a closer encounter with Christ. Silence is an important part of our liturgy. I was initially back in July, and I went out to Lake Orta, San Giulio, where the mother, a famous nun, she restored this monastery, a convent, and it's very vibrant, but she has this beautiful icon of Our Lady of Silence, the importance of silence in prayer in the church, so that we can, we can encounter Christ. In the traditional Latin Mass, some people think, oh, the priest has turned to us and he's saying parts of the Mass in silence. I find that a beautiful time to encounter Christ, to draw myself near to Christ. Silence challenges us, we need to. It wasn't a bad liturgy that we had, in my opinion. So David, great video. I was interested. I thought it was very interesting to see what's going on in the States. You were there talking about a priest saying that if kids don't wear masks, they can't go to Catholic school. Bizarre. In Ireland, thankfully, our government has told kids under the age of 12 don't wear masks in school. So my son's in one of these schools, none of the kids wear masks, and Ireland hasn't collapsed under COVID, and those kids are not vaccinated. So I don't know what's going on in the States, but bizarre times. So God bless. Take care. Bye-bye.